Welcome back to Technology Behind Business. Planning an IT budget for a smaller company can be a real challenge. With many new technologies being developed, when is the right time to upgrade your hardware? Or should you make the leap into the cloud? Our expert panel on this issue includes Dave Stevens from Brennan IT, IBRS analyst James Turner and my business editor Simon Sharwood. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the panel. I guess a question to all of you, do you expect 2011 for small business will be a year where there is spending on IT budget or some hesitation on spending on infrastructure, possibly with the NBN hanging over their heads? What are your thoughts, Dave?
Look, I think the IT budgets have been somewhat on hold for the last 2 or 3 years, and with the GFC and whatnot, and infrastructure cycles as they are, I think money's going to need to be spent. So I think this year's going to be a year that small businesses should look at infrastructure budgets, but I think they should also consider the cloud and can they change their infrastructure model to a cloud-based one and change the way that they budget. So can we change the CapEx that they would experience into an OpEx and use that valuable CapEx for something else?
James, Simon, is that a new way of thinking for small business? Is it about the physical spending on hardware, or is it thinking more smartly about how you spend on IT in relation to cloud?
I'll take that one. I guess the interesting thing that I'm looking at is that everyone's presuming that we're now out of the woods, economically speaking, and I'm not sure that's yet the case. I think the prudent businesses are going to be quite cautious with their spending. It's true that spending money on hardware and software is just like sunk money for a small business, so looking at alternatives is definitely going to be high on the agenda. We're recommending to our clients that they actually put a portion of their IT budget aside for research and development to see how they can start being innovative with how they're supporting the business. And I think small business should be looking at exactly the same thing, not just leaping in and following the crowd, but actually looking at alternatives to what they're probably doing now.
Simon, what are your thoughts?
I think James has hit the nail on the head there. What do you want from IT? You want a better business. So, does it really matter if you're in the cloud? Does it really matter if you're buying boxes? I mean, you can buy a whole pretty decent PC for $199 these days. Let's not worry about that PC. Worry about what you're going to do with it and how it's going to change your business. Late last year, we saw one of Australia's mobile telcos come to market with a completely different way of doing prepaid mobiles, and in discussions they revealed that they conceived of that, executed it and got ads to market in 90 days. That's what you want your IT to do, help you bring game changers to market. If that happens to be cloud that lets you get there, great. If it's something else that lets you get there, then that's great too.
How does a small business start to make that assessment about their finances for the next year and what areas they should be focusing their money on? Because technology by its nature changes, and in many cases dramatically. The NBN would be in the backs of their minds in many cases, wouldn't it?
So the NBN, from our perspective, opens up a whole kind of new area of investments for small businesses, and things like cloud and online shopping and online portals for client access and things like that are going to become very, very popular, I think, over the next 12 months. And just to kind of respond to the guys' points, I think one of the big constraining factors in small businesses is capital access to capital and the ability to invest it. And whilst I agree that IT isn't in and of itself a game changer and that you should look to how do I use IT to enhance my business, I think when you've got something like the cloud that's able to give you an operational expense rather than a capital expense, you can upgrade your infrastructure and use that capital to go and buy a new tractor or a new printing machine or whatever it is that does drive your business. So I think it's really important for small businesses to think about capital.
I think small businesses need to have a think about what kind of things technology is going to enable their business to do. We've seen the emergence of social media as an extraordinary way to market your business and to get you offshore in many cases. Now we know, touch wood, that Australia is going to enter a far higher bandwidth environment. So I think small businesses need to start to think about the way they do business and the processes that power their business and what technology investments they can make that will let them take advantage of a high bandwidth environment and thrive in that environment.
I agree 100%.
So, but gentlemen, for a small business, I guess the question is now or later, particularly with investment.
Yesterday. If you're not
particularly
thinking
in
about
relation
this
to
stuff,
the NBN.
Well, if you're not thinking about how you're going to market yourself online, then you're in trouble. I mean, when your Yellow Pages arrives at home, you know, goes thud onto the front door, it used to be something that was enshrined in the home because it was such a valuable reference. I reckon a lot of them now get recycled almost instantly.
Door openers and things like that.
Or they use as door openers, or they're propping up your monitor or your television because we've got the internet.
I'm going to argue with you on that point because I think while it's very important for small businesses to be web savvy, I don't think that necessarily greater bandwidth is going to be a game changer in and of itself. Everyone's touting, you know, video conferencing and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a very slow adoption rate for that. You know, it's Metcalfe's law. It's going to be based on the number of people that actually adopt it. And I think in the small business range, if you're a dental practice or a physiotherapy clinic or something like that, whether you've got a gigabit per second or standard ADSL as you do now, it's not going to make much of a difference to your business.
No, but the fact that we live in a high bandwidth world starts to change it. When I bought my most recent bicycle, I reflected after I bought it, and I actually bought the one for which there was a video review. Why? Because that gave me a better experience of that product or service.
Yeah, but I guess, Simon, what changes when the bandwidth goes from kind of this big to that big? And if that's still 4 or 5 years away, should that be a consideration in IT budgets
and that's why
now?
I think it's worth approaching this quite cautiously. Obviously, you need to be aware of what your competition are doing because if they're moving strongly into an area, you need to be able to move rapidly and adjust accordingly. But at the same time, we're going cloud and we're creating YouTube channels because we think it's a smart idea could potentially be a diffusion of your resources.
You're right, but I think at the same time, small businesses need to think about what the impact of technology is on their customers and how they're going to meet that.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 comments around that. I think that the actual size of bandwidth that you get access to does change the way that you do business.
Yes.
And cloud is a case in point. It means that more and more cloud business cases actually get up, the higher the bandwidth, the cheaper the bandwidth.
Yep.
And that's just one case.
Dave Stevens, if a small business is looking at their funding over the next 12 months, what can they do in a cloud environment now?
So, and that goes to the broader question about how does a small business start to form plans around how can I use technology better to meet business requirements? And I think the number one thing that we preach to our clients is ask your trusted vendors, ask your trusted suppliers, ask them how can your
Sorry, I'm just
company.
pressing a laugh there.
so you've got to trust
vendors. I've never heard that phrase before.
we should come and have a chat to you guys. You've got to basically ask open questions. How, what's new out there? How can we use it? How can we? How will it change our business and provide benefits to us and our clients? Ask those questions, and you'll get some really interesting responses.
I don't think there's any harm in doing some research, but I'll give you a case in point which goes directly against that, and that is, we're predicting that this year a lot of our clients are going to be flipping across from Windows XP to Windows 7. Standard desktop refresh, well, by standard it'll be the first one in quite a while. But the problem with a lot of these projects, and we're starting to hear this now from our clients, is that these projects are turning into Christmas trees. It's becoming...
What do you mean by that, James Turner? It's just Surface? It's without fundamentals?
Everyone's hanging something on it. So it's becoming the Windows 7 upgrade, it's becoming the Office 2010 rollout, it's becoming the let's flip across to Gmail. It's like, what are we doing with these iPad things? And they're all putting it into the one project, and it's becoming completely unwieldy. I've literally sat down with project managers and said, you do know that this project is going to fail. It's inevitable because you've got too many variables, too many stakeholders, nothing's clearly defined. And I'm concerned that in the small business environment, if they start chasing off after new technologies, which are not core to what they're doing, then they can waste their time and efforts.
Can I get from all three of you, what are core investment requirements for a small business in IT as a starting point for businesses watching this program that think, well, okay, where do I focus my budget on? Dave, I'll start with you.
Look, I think infrastructure is where it all starts. So if you're not happy with the infrastructure and it's not going to do the job for the next 3 years, then I think you've got a budget for that. And then once you've got solid infrastructure, be it cloud or on-premise, then you ask the question of your trusted vendors, what technologies out there that can assist me? How can you help me service my clients? How can you help me build my business? And work with the vendors, set the budgets accordingly.
James Turner?
I'm loving this trusted vendor phrase. I think that's a really nice spin on things. I think it's definitely worthwhile sitting down and talking to people that they know and respect. And this could be literally someone that understands computers very well. But it's worth saying, where are they losing a lot of their time? when it comes to interfacing with their technology systems. Maybe it's time to start looking at where they can streamline these either through new software updates or even by shifting stuff into the cloud. I have made an argument previously that moving stuff into the cloud can potentially be better from a security perspective, because it minimises the amount of stuff that you've got to take care of, yourself as a small business when you could be under-resourced. But at the same time, don't just go rushing to the cloud because you think it's a smart thing. Having said that, what we should be looking at and taking away from the floods in Queensland is that disaster recovery and business continuity are incredibly important.
Absolutely.
And your business cannot function, after 2 weeks of, sustained downtime.
Absolutely.
So
We'll come to that in a moment. Simon Sharwood, my business editor, what do you think the priorities should be for a small organisation looking for investment over the next 12 months in IT?
Look, I think you have to say to yourself, how will IT help me sell stuff, and how will IT help me retain customers? Now, to a certain degree, those two issues that business people care about the most are almost completely disconnected from IT. I don't care if my IT department gets me those outcomes with rubber bands and elves, so long as I get those outcomes. So I think small business people need to get really, get a bit medieval with their IT teams and just say, stop talking to me about cloud versus on-premise. Here is your budget. Here is the outcome. Deliver.
tell me more about the rubber bands and elves. I think that's fantastic.
Simon, and how does a manager of a small to medium business have that relationship with IT management? And presumably it's a small IT team. How do they know whether or not the promised gadget is going to deliver the business outcome?
You've got to define the outcome, and you've got to bring your IT people into the tent and explain to them that this isn't an organisation which makes choices about cloud versus on-premise. This is an organisation which delights customers and recruits customers. And when your conversation is about delighting customers, and you make everybody's goal delighting customers, then hopefully you can bring your IT team on board so that they understand that they're part of an organisation that delights customers. There's an old joke that IT is the department that says no. You've got to get your IT
that's actually
team...
the security division that says no. The IT team says, no, we can do that, but it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah. But one way or another, you know, you go and you talk to your tech heads and they say some stuff to you which is partly comprehensible and say it's only going to be possible to do a little bit of what you want. You know, the technology is out there. The technology is good. On the kind of top-line question of, you know, smaller budget or bigger budget, smaller budget, higher expectations, and set those expectations by explaining to your IT people that this is what the business needs to be able to do.
We're going to start running out of time, gentlemen, but quickly we saw the terrible devastation in Queensland, and many businesses are now counting the cost. And if they had material on hard drives in computers, one of the issues will be cloud. Quckly, the advantages and disadvantages of cloud from each of you. Dave, I'll start with you.
So we've got a big business in Queensland, and we're you know, a large part of our cloud infrastructure is there, and a lot of Queensland clients, and you know, we've had lots and lots of clients affected over the last week or so. So, you know, speaking firsthand, the benefits of the on-premise solution were that clients could turn off their equipment. They could, you know, if they had time, they could move it into a safe place. They could, you know, they were without power. They couldn't do their core business, and you know, they were pretty heavily affected. The clients that had cloud infrastructure, even if their main premise was underwater and unusable, they were able to either move to our office or some other location. They were able to bring PCs and access their core infrastructure.
Get some of that material from the cloud and bring it down.
And be able to continue trading too, which was really important.
What should be in the cloud as a priority?
I think the challenge here for small businesses is actually deciphering what the cloud means for their particular use case. I think online backup would be incredibly useful to a lot of these people. However, getting software as a service and using an online CRM could equally be very valuable. Both of them, you know, we'd normally call cloud services, but very different services.
Running short of time, Simon Sharwood, even something as simple as Google and Gmail, people should consider as a cloud service. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the term cloud is a bit too broad at the moment. I think for 2011 we need to focus in on what's out there in the cloud that can bring value to your organisation. In my own case, my wife runs a photography business from home, and we live under the flight path. We use cloud backup, so we've got copies of those files in Singapore, North America and Europe. I think that kind of makes us meteor-proof.
Gentlemen, we are short of time. It has been great to talk about IT budgets for small businesses, and you've been very helpful. Dave Stevens from Brennan IT, thank you. James Turner from IBRS Analyst, and Simon Sharwood, my business editor. Great to have you on board. Thank you. That is all for this week's edition of Technology Behind Business. You can watch our show again at the website skynews.com.au. I'm John Kerrison. Thanks for joining us.